In 1988, John McClane was the R-rated everyman in a vest, but in 2007 he'd become a PG-13 superhero taking on a fighter jet with a truck. Today, my friends, we are taking a look at Live Free or Die Hard, also known as Die Hard 4.0, the sequel that dragged John McClane kicking and screaming into the 21st century. Did the studio make a mistake with the PG-13 rating? Does the movie's cyber-terrorism plot actually hold up today? Is Justin Long a worthy Sidekick successor to Samuel L. Jackson? And does Timothy Olyphant's Gabriel even come close to the legend that is Hans Gruber? Join me as we ask ourselves, is Die Hard 4 good or bad?
That's gonna wake the neighbors.
Now, before we begin, if you have just discovered the Die Hard franchise for the first time and you've not seen Die Hard 4 and you've just stumbled across this video, fair warning, spoilers. Now, with that out of the way, oh wait, no, sorry, there is the other thing. Blimey, you'd be a YouTuber today. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below telling me whether you think owning a yacht would be more trouble than it's worth. One thing that stands out about Die Hard 4 is how it carries itself. I am of course referring to the lack of an R rating. For the theatrical release domestically, the movie was given a PG-13 rating, which is significantly lower than the franchise's usual R rating, meaning McClane couldn't drop as many F-bombs and the movie couldn't shed as much blood. Don't get me wrong, Die Hard was never on the bloody levels of Saw or anything, but it is thematically very noticeable, so Live Free or Die Hard comes across as more watered down, especially after you watch the first 3 movies. Which is a shame because that rating lends itself to feeling a tad disconnected from the rest of the franchise. Although on a side note, I do love the fact that in America they rated the original 3 R and this one a PG-13, whereas in the UK we have them all down at a 15. So like we're just like, yeah, bloody violence, deaths, profusive F-bombs, yeah, that's teen worthy. So as a result, this blood and foul language cutback just makes the film feel cleaner. And not in a good way. We also have to consider visually, in the earlier movies, by the end of it, McClane looked like he had been through a gauntlet of bad guys, especially in the first one. I can never overstate just how worn down McClane looked at the end of that first movie. I mean, his feet were cut up by glass, he was dragging them along, and he was covered in blood, sweat, and determination. At the end of Die Hard 4, he just looks a bit dusty with a few scratches. It's just not as impactful. They still work the signature yippee-ki-yay mofo line in, which is good, but disguised a little by the gunshot.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker!
Now you may be thinking, but it's okay, Mike, there's an unrated cut. And you are right, there is. But sadly it's not available worldwide, so the only option that I would have would be to import it from the US to the UK, which in 2026 isn't brilliant. I can only hope that they do a re-release or a repackage a version of it and include the unrated cut, maybe even put it on Disney+. Right now, the only option is to either import it or to look at comparison screenshots online and go, well, that looks nice. So I haven't watched the unrated cut, but I have looked it up online and I've read the comparisons, and it does sound like a better version of the movie, but it doesn't look like it brings it back to what those earlier films were, but does somewhat bridge the gap. For those of you that don't know, Die Hard 4 is about a group of cyber-terrorists, led by the villainous Thomas Gabriel, played by Timothy Olyphant, who target the United States network infrastructure in order to get money.
It's always been about the money.
Along the way, John McClane must team up with hacker Matthew Farrell, played by Justin Long, in order to stop him from stealing all of that money and save the life of one Lucy McClane, John's daughter, who finds herself in the villain's crosshairs. Like mother, like daughter. I will say, I think this techie setting was a very natural fit for bringing Die Hard into the 21st century, and I love this theme of bringing old school rules to a technological age.
You're a Timex watch in a digital age. You're gonna lose.
Yeah, well, the other thing that could happen is I can come and find you, kick your ass, and throw you out of your own party. We you think about that?
So I have to say, I do enjoy the cyber terrorism plot and the concept of a threat of a fire sale, which basically just means taking out all of the nation's various infrastructures one by one. Transportation, telecommunication, financial, utility infrastructures, all gone, hence the name fire sale. Everything must go. A terrifying concept, and one that is absolutely relevant today. Although I can't help but thinking if this story was told today, it would probably be about John McClane versus an AI. Utilising such a technological theme meant that the movie could give us several cool scenes where the villain would manipulate some code to send a crazy amount of gas supply to John's location to create a deadly explosion. Not that Die Hard ever needed help making an excuse to cause an explosion. Or the scene in the tunnels where Gabriel orders them to start shutting down lights and messing with traffic signals in order to create carnage to try and take McClane out. Sorry, couldn't resist. This scene always makes me think of The Dark Knight Rises. Even though Die Hard 4 is older than The Dark Knight Rises, and I saw it before The Dark Knight Rises, so I suppose what I should say is that since The Dark Knight Rises, this scene makes me think of The Dark Knight Rises. I'm going to stop saying The Dark Knight Rises now. They managed to blend John's more brute force physical approach very well with the hacker sidekick's more technically minded approach. I especially like the scene where they needed a car, so John breaks into one and is about to hotwire it, but Farrell recognises that this is a techie car. So he stops him and instead tricks the caller who works for the car manufacturer, who uses her computer power skills to detect that they have had a collision and gets her to start the car for them. It is a small scene, which in the grand scheme of things isn't that important, but it does effectively highlight their different mindsets and works as a relationship building scene. Because these two characters start off as strangers, but by the end of the movie, they grow on one another and form a mutual appreciation. It is a similar dynamic that McClane had with Samuel L. Jackson's character in the third movie, although I will say that Zeus and McClane are a lot more fun to watch than Farrell and McClane. So to answer the question that I had earlier, Die Hard 3 does this a little bit better, but Die Hard 4 does it very well as well. I mean, to be honest, how can you actually compete with Samuel L. Jackson? Justin Long's good, but come on, Samuel L. Jackson. The only one that can take him down without an underhanded tactic is a goddamn shark. Now, Matthew Farrell was actually not the original plan for this character, and in order to explore that, we're going to have to talk about the setup to the character in general, which is that he was approached by Gabriel's people who said they were working on some kind of new security and they needed hackers to test hack it. In actuality, they were having him hack the FBI cyber division to create a blackout to put their plans into motion. Farrell agreed to this, but then he and the other hackers, who were all unaware of each other, were then systematically assassinated. But the FBI, because of the cyber attack, ordered a pickup for all of the hackers that were on their FBI watch list, and Farrell was one of them. Local law enforcement was used to collect them, and John got the call to pick up Farrell. But in the original version of the movie, Farrell's character was actually going to be John's son, who would now be all grown up into a respectable hacker who got himself in too deep with the wrong people. This was later scrapped and changed to Farrell being a random guy, which I think was a good idea because while it does give John a bigger reason to be involved, the fact that it just so happens to be John's kid that unknowingly helped the cyber terrorists is perhaps a little too convenient. But by making it a random guy and an NYPD dispatch, it removes the plot convenience and also adds in the traditional theme for the Die Hard franchise of wrong time, wrong place. Except for Die Hard 3, that wasn't wrong place, wrong time, that was planned revenge. Although to be fair, it was planned revenge for something that John did in Die Hard 1, which was because of wrong place, wrong time, so still kind of works. And after changing the idea of it being John's son to a randomer called Matthew Farrell, I suppose they felt the need to add in someone that would give John McClane that personal stake in the story. Therefore, they introduced Lucy McClane, all grown up and played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead. She is a fun character and mirrors her mother a lot, especially at the start of the movie, where she isn't on the best terms with her dad and refers to herself as Lucy Gennaro instead of Lucy McClane, which is a direct callback to the original Die Hard movie. Also, I don't know why, but I always find this next bit funny. At the start of the movie, Lucy is in a car with some guy she is seeing, and John drags him out, and after an argument, Lucy leaves, and when the guy gets in his car, John shuts the door for him. I don't know why I find this amusing. Maybe it's the nuance of the scene, like, get the F out of here, I am shutting the door on you, or maybe I'm just being a bit weird. Yeah, probably the weird one, but there we are. They also make her convincingly the daughter of John McClane in several small scenes that showcase her personality traits. She is tough, she is not afraid to stand up for herself, and look the villain in the eye and tell them what's what.
Let's step outside, just you and me. We'll see who hurts who.
Really are his daughter.
As for Thomas Gabriel, I thought he was a good villain. I mean, yeah, sure, he wasn't physically intimidating, but then, aside from perhaps Colonel Stewart and Simon from Die Hards 2 and 3, none of them really have had that physical prowess. Even Simon, who was a soldier and certainly capable in that regard, was more about mind games and manipulation than outright I'm gonna rip your face off villainy. Gabriel was the guy behind the scenes, the guy on the radio that would make threats and put his evil plans into motion.
I'm gonna come and I'm gonna kick your ass. You have no idea who I am or what I am capable of.
Never the one to actually get his hands dirty until the end where the natural hero meets villain moment needs to happen. Oliphant's performance was very good. He played him as a very smooth villain. He spoke softly, cold, and calculated. Or at least to begin with he did. After a while of dealing with McClane, his emotions did get the better of him.
Only John can drive somebody that crazy.
Now, when comparing him to other villains in the Die Hard series, while I like Gabriel, he does not come close to Hans Gruber. Alan Rickman's wonderful nuanced performance was just too good to beat. Not just the acting, but his appearance, the way his character dressed, his hairstyle. I mean, damn, that is one snappily dressed villain ready for Bad Guy Fashion Week.
I could talk about industrialization and men's fashions all day, but I'm afraid work must intrude.
And I think Die Hard 3's Simon is the second best. He was obsessed, manipulative, and loved a good mind game. Gabriel, I think, ranks third on the Die Hard best villains scale. He is still very good, but lacks the same levels of intimidation as Hans and Simon. And I would put him ahead of Die Hard 2's Colonel Stewart, simply because beyond his brawn, he wasn't that interesting. Still a decent villain by all means, but he also lacks the intimidation of Hans and Simon. Then when you add in the fact that he is just a soldier with a plan, with muscles, that's all Colonel Stewart really had. He was a hammy villain, he was a fun villain, but there really wasn't anything else to him. Another reason I would put Gabriel ahead of Stewart is his plan. When you consider the plans of all the villains of the Die Hard movies, the rest of them, on a national level, are just news stories to anyone who isn't in that immediate area. With Gabriel's, though, everyone was in a vice. So I think he deserves some extra villain points for that. And baddie number 5 comes after this movie, so we'll get to that another time. Got to admit, I didn't see this next bit coming when I first watched this movie.
Didn't you hear me?
All Baltimore heard you, Ma.
Yeah, Kevin Smith is in this movie in all of his Kevin Smith glory. And yeah, it is more John meets hacker shtick. But you know what? I like that shtick. It's good shtick. One may say, I am really into this shtick. Shtick. It's a good word. I like the shtick.
Nice poster. Oh, what, like you a big fan of the Fat?
No. He's always more of a Star Wars guy.
Oh, they mentioned Star Wars. This one's a keeper. So Smith plays a super hacker named Freddy, but he goes by the name Warlock. And there is one very amusing scene where he forces John McClane to refer to him as Warlock in order to get his help. And it's safe to say that McClane wasn't best pleased with that. I think he served this minor role well. He brings some humour into this movie, but doesn't overstay his welcome. Because this Warlock character, if they'd have made him a main character, or even just increased his screen time a little bit, it would have added way too many cringy moments to this film. But just at the level it is just walking that line where it adds humour but doesn't go too far. Now, that is when you watch this movie from just the perspective of Die Hard 4, but when you consider the franchise as a whole, They don't have a lot of characters like this Warlock guy in those movies, so it further divides the 4th installment from the rest of the franchise. But if you can get past that, you will probably find the fun in it. You just need to accept that this is a more family-friendly Die Hard first, which fair enough might be too much of a tough sell for some. A common complaint about Die Hard 4 is the way they put McClane into increasingly over-the-top set pieces and push that required suspension of disbelief to a whole new level. One of the major appeals of the earlier movies, especially the first one, was that he was just a guy. Okay, sure, he had police training, but he was still just a guy. He wasn't trained in counter-terrorism or to deal with a situation like that. He was a street cop. He wasn't James Bond or, well, literally any Steven Seagal character. And that is why it was so gritty, so claustrophobic, and so interesting. But granted, they did push this with each sequel. In Die Hard 2, we saw him having a fist fight on top of a plane that was attempting to take off. In 3, he climbed out of a train that was sent flying after an explosion. But they all pale in comparison to the hilarity that is John McClane in a truck being shot the hell out of by a fighter pilot in a military aircraft. And John wins the fight! And as ludicrous as it is, on a mindless entertainment level, it is still fun to watch. But I cannot deny it does lose something that the earlier movies had, which is that grittiness and plausibility that this situation could happen. The story of one guy being trapped in a building with gun-toting bad guys. The odds are against him, but it's possible. He has a chance, and that's the fun, isn't it? Watching him and seeing how he overcomes those odds. But then when we see him doing stuff like this, that just goes out of the window because it's basically superhero territory at this point. They just make John McClane practically unbreakable. Reference intended. The fighter jet is the cornerstone example of this, but the movie is chock full of over-the-top action, SUV and elevator shenanigans, and throwing a cop car at a helicopter. More on that one in a moment. Like I said, it loses the plausibility and that sense of vulnerability that the earlier movies had, admittedly in mixed volumes, but the trade-off is, it is fun to watch. So, of course, it's left up to the viewer to decide which you prefer. Personally, I prefer the former, but the latter is enjoyable too. Basically, I'm just greedy, I like both. Now, this brings us on to the coolest scene in the movie, which is the cop car kills helicopter scene. What I love about this is how it was made. It was mostly a practical effect, which they achieved in 2 shots. One of the car being launched at a helicopter that was suspended by cables. The second was a shot of the guy jumping out of the helicopter. Then they used CGI to remove the cables and add in the spinning rotor blades. And I absolutely love that this was done as practically as it could be done. Which is because while CGI can look amazing, and you can do all sorts of inventively weird and wonderful things with it, a practical shot, in my opinion, is timeless. It is something that actually happened, caught on camera. Maybe not in the order that you watch it, but that's just filmmaking. I remember when I saw this movie for the first time, and I was thinking, damn, that looks very impressive and real. Which is because it is real. And there is something genuine about that, something authentic. They put something in front of a camera and filmed it. And I am a big advocate of if you can do something as real as it can be done, and safely of course, then do it. Because CGI is impressive and a lot of work goes into it. Some of my favourite movies contain heavy amounts of CGI. And the artists behind that, tons of respect for their work. But there is a time and a place for it, and it's certainly not a substitute for practical effects, be it miniatures, puppetry, makeup, costume design, all of that stuff. I love it completely. I'm not always the best at spotting it though, but that may be just the magic of special effects. Also, small thing here, but I do like it. This scene where John and Farrell are pinned down in Farrell's apartment after the assassins failed to kill him with a bomb that would trigger upon Farrell pressing the delete key after the cyber terrorist bricked his PC. They are taking cover, and a figurine of none other than the Terminator falls on the delete key and blows up the bad guys. And I love that the Terminator got a few kills in this movie, although given that it was the delete key, it would make more sense if it was a Cyberman. But I get it. brand recognition. Hashtag justice for the Cyberman. In conclusion, I think that Live Free or Die Hard is a mouthful of a name and I much prefer calling it Die Hard 4. I also think that it's a good movie. It's not the best Die Hard movie, not at all. Perhaps if they'd have made this originally for an R rating, more in line with the earlier movies, and scaled back some of the over-the-top ludicrous fighter jet versus truck stuff, then maybe it would be a better Die Hard movie, but in and of itself, it's a decent action flick. One that I think is worth going back to, or giving a go if you never got around to it. So my verdict is good. Die Hard 4 is good, but not great. I sincerely hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please hit those like and subscribe buttons, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.